Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show. Thank you.
Trigger warning, spoiler alert, check the batteries on your smoke detector. You're listening to a hot and smoking episode of the Tom Kelly Show. Episode 152 here from sunny New York City. I'm in a good mood. Let's get right into it. I'm fired up today, and I'm fired up because I'm going to share a moment with you guys that's going to prove I'm not crazy. Right now, if I tell the story I'm about to tell, I'm going to sound crazy, but I have proof that I'm not crazy. So in New York City, we live on top of each other. The joke about my apartment was, and actually it's a fact, I actually hid it on YouTube, but my most viral video on YouTube is me sitting in this very apartment, listening to the sounds of neighbors having loud sex. Yeah. Also, I can always hear the neighbors upstairs when they're walking around. There was a point when I had neighbors below me who were going through the messiest of divorces, and I heard the wife in the relationship verbally abusing her husband in the funniest of ways. Maybe I'll tell that story later, but right now let me focus on this story. And the story right now is behind the beautiful brick wall that you see behind me if you're watching on YouTube or if you've watched on my social media clips at Tom Kelly Show. I've been hearing really weird screaming. And at first I thought it was a cat because they were hitting like weird tones. Then part of me was thinking it's screaming in some form of another language. And then the problem is nobody else in my building has heard this screaming. And I haven't had anybody over to hear it. It always happens like in the early afternoon. And I have people who tell me, Tom, you overthink things. Actually, many of those people are you, the listeners of this podcast. And I heard it. So I took my iPhone and I put it on top of one of the frames behind me and hit record. And folks, here we go. Hear it? Maybe I'm crazy. There, it's a lot of that last note. Now, if anybody speaks whatever language that was, I'm hearing a lot of now there's a bar that got turned into a very, very expensive sushi place, but that's literally 2 floors below me. Could that noise be vibrating up the bricks into my apartment? I don't know, but I'll tell you this, people, whatever it is, I'm not crazy. So if you do speak whatever language that is, and I want to be cognizant that I'm not doing an impersonation, but I am kind of mimicking a noise that was freaking me out for a while. Because again, muffled through the brick walls, it was disturbing. And again, I was the only one hearing it. So, and that's the hard part about living alone. Is sometimes you think you're crazy and you're not, and sometimes you are crazy. And that brings me to the next big New York City moment. We have a listener, Fred the Mailman, Incogfredo on Instagram. And Fred has sent me a couple of nice notes over the months saying that he really enjoys hearing the differences between New York City and wherever he is in the Midwest about how we've handled aspects of the pandemic and how it's affected my career and life, blah, blah, blah. And he's been very cool about not making it political. And being political for a second, there is a war on plastic bags here in New York City. And I actually, as a man who loves the environment, as a man who does long beach walks, as a man who was a professional underwater dancer in a natural spring for a while, I might be pro-environment, people. I'm pro-environment. And again, I will work this into a bit at another point in time. I hate cancel culture, but I am pro do better culture. And if switching the paper bags and charging me a nickel here and there helps the environment, fine. Now, there is a man who runs the grocery store across the street from me, the Pioneer at 74th and Columbus. They operate as if it were still 1972. And for many years, I enjoyed that. Well, he, I guess, is mad at his bag supplier and will no longer accept the purchase of he doesn't sell paper bags. He only sells reusable bags for $1 and no plastic. And I don't want a plastic bag. Okay, people, I'm here to save a tree. I'll go. If there were a tree in this apartment, I'd hug it right now. I love dolphins. I don't want to choke a dolphin. Okay, I'm here. I am pro environment. This tree hating, dolphin choking son of a bitch over at the Pioneer. He will not buy the 25-cent bags. He just won't. He's like, it costs me too much money. And I'm like, no, it does not, because you pass the cost along to the customer. And the only reason you're selling me those $1 bags is because you're probably making 90 cents on each damn bag. Now, I know what you're saying, Tom. Why don't you just go to the grocery store with a bag? Because when I wander into the grocery store. I don't go to the grocery store on purpose. I wander in. And I told the man, hey, man, listen, I'm about to buy $30 worth of stuff. And if you had paper bags, I would probably buy $70 to $100 worth of stuff. And he's like, I understand, sir. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because by the time I go all the way to my apartment, I'm so mad at him. I go to the other grocery store and I know, okay, now I sound crazy. Like, here's the nice thing about the podcast is sometimes you say this stuff out loud and you get crazy, but I'm so worked up with this man and the damn bags. I really am. I really am, people. So a lot to talk about. This one, let's see if this one works with you guys. Have you guys been following this story, West Elm Caleb? Geez, okay, I have it written down here. So if you're on the TikTok, and if you're calling it the TikTok like I am, you're probably not on it. Let's see, West Elm Caleb. So the gimmick of the West Elm Caleb story is a New York woman posted a story on TikTok about how she was ghosted by a man named Caleb on a dating app called Hinge. And then whatever happened, the guy started ghosting her. And then all of these women started asking, you mean Caleb, who works at West Elm as a furniture designer? And a slew of other women had a similar story with this 6'4" mustached furniture designer. And that's how we describe. And according to the videos, multiple people on TikTok, he love bombed them. And love bombed is a new word. I like the word love bomb. It's where you initially demonstrate a lot of affection only to ghost after a couple of dates. Geez, Caleb, I have been there and I hope that I have not done that. So anyway, there's a lot to follow from the guy. The guy just looks, here's my problem with the whole West Elm Caleb story is he just looks like the ultimate douchey hipster. And Hannah Berner said on her podcast, she was interviewing some sort of tall, dreamy reality star. And the line was, well, you're 6'5". So you never had to develop a personality, was her shot at the guy. And thank you, Hannah Berner, for letting me quote you on this. Women, here's your problem. Here's your problem. When women are young, good looking, and at the top of their game and have potential, they all go for douchebags. And then what usually happens is the douchebag, his quote unquote stock price drops at a slower rate. He starts making money and he trades in for a younger model. And then somehow at age 45, all these women who wouldn't give me the time of day suddenly look for me. And it's just like, geez, thanks. That's what I want. I want to take care of West Elm Caleb and Bob, the basketball player's children, and pay to send them to college now that he's off the radar. It's the story, you know, that's the problem, people, is when we date douchebags, we get surprised by douchebag behavior. Now, you could twist that sentence and shoot it right back at me. Tom, if you fall for cheerleaders, don't be surprised if they act like a cheerleader. But again, I tend to fall for tall, athletic women who are questioning their sexuality. And usually after a few dates with me, they have their answers. End of Omicron is in sight. The end of Omicron is in sight, America. I'm hoping you're clapping as I say that. I'm going to try this joke at Colbert later. The end of Omicron is in sight, which is too bad because I just bought myself a COVID testing van. And that's the statement about healthcare in this country, and where I'm worried if there's ever another wave after this is the standards of healthcare. It's home testing kit. Friends, I did not do well in chemistry, and now you have me putting in 6 drops into the top, sliding something up my nose, and then putting it into a hole. Folks, I haven't put anything into a hole in a long time. But this is the standard of healthcare. It goes home testing kit. Then we work our way up to the tents. And those in New York City, they have a lot of these COVID testing tents, and they do not look savory. First of all, these tents, and they have like COVID testing trucks. If there is like half of the people at these trucks look like they just got out of prison, never mind health aides. These people look like they just got out of prison, and the other half look like they're college kids trying to steal your identity. Yeah, sure. Just put your email address and your social security number, and we'll send you an email letting you know whether or not you got COVID. I feel like half of these kids are just, they're not nurses. They're not home health aides. They're not professionals. They're just college kids with a bunch of Q-tips and an iPad. And there was a fourth joke that I can't remember about that right now. So again, all fun topics today. Ooh, this is one I want to do for next week. I want to bring a guest on for this one. University of Washington has announced all problem words. Look that up. I'll do that next week. Maybe I'll do it Thursday. If I honestly, because I'm quote unquote studying for my COVID tests this week, because I have a week of work and I'm trying not to be exposed to anybody for fear that I fail a COVID test and then lose money on the week. I've been isolating. So I might be a little bit crazy, people. I might be a little bit crazy. But let's go through this. Dinner date. Oh, here we go. Now, the vacation day. Oh, I know which topic I wanted to hit here. I'm going to go straight to this one. I feel like everybody in America needs to go a few hours without electricity every few months. So that way we can appreciate the magic of electricity. Now, I'm not that old, but I was raised by people that poor. My grandparents on both sides of my family were born and at least initially raised in homes in Ireland and Sicily, respectively, without electricity. Now, and on my mother's side, Sicily got electricity late. I want to say the 60s. And then I don't think they got the phone till the 70s. And from what I hear nowadays, the town still doesn't have great running water. It's a mountain town. Everybody dated their cousins, even if your cousin wasn't hot. That's the other one is I have my grandfather's sister married a cousin. And I have no disrespect for the cousin, but geez, if you're going to marry your cousin, marry a hot one. Side note, back to me. But anyway, back to my life. I'm at my parents' house. This is a week and a half ago now. It's one of the snowstorms. The power went out from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. I slept through most of it. The phones didn't charge properly. Everything in the house runs on electricity. Even the stuff that runs on gas runs on electricity. It's regulated by electric systems. So it was about 3 or 4 hours, the temperature slowly dropping. My mom went out to the car to charge her iPhone, and the power came back on. And instead of just telling mom the power came back on 5 minutes after she went outside, I waited. I not waited that long, but I waited. I brewed her a cup of coffee and brought it out to her in the car because I thought that was my way of being cute. I made her sit in the car for an extra 5 minutes. No longer taking text messages. A friend of mine from my NBC days, a man I haven't talked to outside of Facebook for 25 years, Scott Miller, posts on Facebook, "Please note, I will no longer be using text messaging. I hate text messaging. I firmly believe it's going to cause the fall of civilization. It was created for brief messaging between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Lately, I'm getting bombarded at all hours of the day. No more. Going forward, I will not be responding to any text message. Just going to delete without reading. Nothing personal. It's strictly business and part of enjoying the journey." And then the next one is, "The one exception to this rule is my niece." Cute. Now, I wish I had Scott's phone number to text him right now to see if he would answer. But I don't know, man. I feel like by giving up SMS, you're giving up on the 21st century. I also think he's giving up literally 1 month into Apple finally creating layers of do not disturb that work. I really like the 4 layers of do not disturb they have on the phone. Focus for focusing on work where only certain people can bother you. Do not disturb where no one will bother you. There is a I'm driving button where it'll reply to the person, "Hey, I'm driving. Text me twice if it's important, but you just might kill me." There's a lot of stuff like that. I enjoy that. And yeah, I like it. But here's the problem. My father, who is 80, has been refusing to get an iPhone for a while, but he's starting to miss out on things. Like first he's on a flip phone. And the problem with flip phones now is the flip phones are just cheap ass. They're not as good as the flip phones were 10, 15, 20 years ago. They're just there for people who want flip phones, and I've had 2 people call me to make sure he wasn't dead because whatever he's doing on the flip phone, it wasn't ringing for a week. He thought he just wasn't loved. Yeah. So I feel like when you completely withdraw from a social media platform, I feel like you are cutting yourself off from people. Like the story with my pop was in the late 90s, early 2000s. My father was just giving people my email address and having them send emails to me. And all his high school and college buddies were then sending me mass emails, like the chain letters. And I'd print them and they'd be like 8 pages. And then my dad would reply with a handwritten note. And that is pretty darn close to the truth. Thank you for that offer to have Bill Gates send me $10 for every person I forward this to. He was like that. He wasn't quite that bad, but it sure felt like that. And finally, one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start filtering which ones of these forwards I print for him. And his reply to that was, "Hey, why aren't you giving me stuff from Uncle Rich or Uncle Joe or this or that?" And I'm like, I'm not printing every single one if they're 50 pages. Go get your own email. And it was one of the few stands I took with my father, and he got it. And nowadays I feel like he's missing out, but then again, there's just moments where going the other way. And listen, we all have this complaint. It's a leash. It's a leash. And you don't know when can you send a text. If I don't send the text now and wait till 8 a.m. tomorrow, I'm going to forget to send the text. And then a few times where I've sent emails to people, Sherry Shepard used to make fun of me that I would not text her, but I would send her an email at 3 a.m. when an idea occurred to me. But the problem is her phone would bleep anyway. So it's just like, do I really need to schedule send everything I think of? And I'm starting to do that with my Google email just a bit, but I don't know, people. You could actually help me on that. What is the etiquette? When can you text? When can you email? What are the rules? If there is a list of etiquette, send it to me. We'll talk about it in the next couple of days on the podcast. Otherwise, here, let's do the magic mirror. Let's close this darn thing out. Magic mirror today is Charles Studevant on Instagram. His picture is of a face from A-Team. If I were really a better podcaster, I would have had the A-Team music queued up for you and playing under me talking about you. Da, 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 da. For the rest of you guys, thank you for listening. New stuff on TikTok the last few days. And until next time, look tomorrow. I might do one more because, again, I'm kind of inside and in a bubble. So until tomorrow or next week, good night, New York.